Okay, I'm back. Let me know if you're coming on again. I have no idea what just happened again. That's twice in a row. And I'm going to try and find out if it's Facebook or it's me or whatever. Good. Okay, sorry guys. I have no idea what just happened. So I'm going to start over again, okay? And hopefully we don't get cut off. I have no idea. My power for my Wi-Fi is very good and everything else, so I don't know. It's like I said, twice in a row. Okay, can you hear me and see me? Just make sure somebody tell me Nick is saying I'm back on and good. Okay, here I go. I'm going to start over again just for recording. So the first question that we went over was phytonutrients, okay? And again, phytonutrients generally are found in the plant kingdom and fruits and vegetables. And I was just telling you, wonderful. But when you do the reset, I want you to take 30 days off of not any fruits and vegetables. For a lot of people, that's very difficult. And I get that. I understand it. What did I always say about the reset? It's simple to understand, but it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but it is simple. And you almost, I in our new book, by the way, I hope you've signed up for that because I think it's today that we're making a big announcement that it's available now. Well, we know I've told you that it's available, but exclusively at first to because we only got limited copies. This is all due to COVID or whatever. And so we're asking people to sign up for the book. But what I explain in the book, and I give all the science behind it in the book, I talk about the reset and why it's so effective. And I explain why, one of the questions I answer in there is why no fruit and vegetables? Okay? Remember, it's 30 days. And for some people, they've been eating like that for a couple of years. And I just remind people, and I brought this up earlier, that the Inuit, what I used to call the Eskimos, they don't have phytonutrients. If they do, they don't have many. And I was telling you about this guy named Stephenson, a Canadian, actually born in Canada, who was an Arctic explorer and lived with the Inuit and observed them, and they couldn't get over how healthy they were. Even their teeth. I don't think they ever brushed their teeth. And what did they eat? Meat. Blubber. Organ meat. That's what they eat. And he couldn't get over it. He actually wrote about it. How healthy. And so, I just remind you of these things, okay? I remind you of these things that, sometimes I just say, like fruit, for example, are God's candies. Don't live on fruit. I remember when Steve Jobs, remember when he got cancer? You know why you have Apple? Because he was I think he was a vegan. He only ate fruits and vegetables. And when he found out he had cancer, he was juicing everything. I would have loved to have got a hold of him. I mentioned this yesterday, I think online, because somebody said, well, I'm going to juice. I got lung cancer, whatever. I got diagnosed with. I said, don't juice. Don't juice. Don't juice carrots. I know there's stuff on the internet, but I tell you, don't juice that stuff. The only thing that I would allow you is some berries in a bone broth smoothie. Dr. Martin's Perfect Smoothie, and I would even take the berries out if you're fighting cancer. And I'm not saying they're no good. I'm just telling you, you don't want to get any fructose to cancer cells. So you have to understand where I'm coming from, and I explain all that. Okay? I explain all that, and it's a program to reset the body's metabolism. And I tell people, look, it's going to go against the grain. It's not ketosis. Somebody asked me a question. What about ketosis, right? What about keto breath? Well, when you're eating eggs, meat, and cheese, you don't get keto breath. I mean, you might for a day as your body's changing fuels. You know, and someone said, well, I didn't do well on the reset. Well, your body's adjusting. Don't give up on it. Like you might, a few days, if your body doesn't do well on the reset, you know why? Because you were a carbaholic. Oh, doc, I didn't eat that much sugar, but you were eating too many carbs. And your body is used to burning those carbs first. So when you cut out carbs, now your body has to change fuels. It's going to burn fat. You're going to burn rocket fuel. 99% octane. And I try and get people to understand that. Okay? So once they understand that, they go, okay, I got it. I got it. So, and someone's asking about elderberry syrup, and I was telling the story about my grandfather and, all of these syrups, and he had his own cough syrup. My dad had his own cough syrup and liniments and ointments, and I remember stuff from hemorrhoids too. I should have written a book about all the stuff that my grandfather used in his practice. A lot of stuff is now, it's a little bit more sophisticated, but it really comes back to going back into nature and using what God's given us, right? I mean, when you think of it, even the pharmaceutical industry, where do you think that comes from? Where do you think all those, they start with an extract and they synthesize it. And that's the difference. They just synthesize it. But all of it, like aspirin is willow bark. That's how they start. It's willow bark. Comes from a tree. So, when people, I get a kick out of some people because they're skeptics of skeptics. And, it's not been approved by the FDA, right? And, everything is the FDA or even some doctors, like they wouldn't take a supplement if their life depended on it. And they're scared of this and that and everything. But, where does the pharmaceutical industry come from? Comes from natural products. Where do you think they get it? They're all natural products. And they modify them. That's what they do. Now, all your drugs come from there. They come from natural products. Okay. And by the way, Helen, elderberry syrup, I just got to tell you clinically, okay? I'm not against it. I like it. I'm just the guy that likes something better. I'm an oil of oregano guy, okay? Because when it comes to throat sprays, sinus sprays, the first sign of a cold, the natural flu shot, guess what I use? Oil of oregano. I've never seen anything better, in my opinion, in the plant and extract kingdom as far as antiviral, antibacterial, antibiotic, antifungal as oil of oregano. So I just compare it to that. Does that mean it's no good, elderberries? No, it's good. I just like something better. That's all, in my opinion. And it's just my clinical experience. So, I'm going to tell you what I know. Okay. Sherry's asking a good question. Can you get used to, like she's using the word adaptogens that are found in the cortisol formula? Well, not really. Your body don't get used to it and then it's not effective. Do I get used to drinking phytonutrients like coffee every day? Does my body get used to it? No. It demands it every day. And, the only thing that I find is if your body already makes something like melatonin. You see, people think melatonin, it's a supplement. Well, it can be, but guys, your body makes melatonin. When you go out in the sun, your body's making melatonin. When you sleep in a very dark room, no light at all, your body makes melatonin. And when you take a supplement of melatonin, sometimes your body, it works for a bit, and then your body, for whatever reason, it's not that effective. And again, I don't mind melatonin as a supplement. I just found over the years that it has a sort of an expiry date. But you never get an expiry date from the sun. Every cell in your body, you're a human solar panel. You need the sun. And the sun will help you to create melatonin. I'm not against supplementing. If it works for you, good for you. I find for me and thousands of my patients over the years, it was better giving them vitamin D or getting them sitting out in the sun. There's a whole new study now on vitamin D. We've been talking about it in the immune system, but it's amazing. It's anti-aging. I'll talk about that next week, okay? Now, Glenda's asking about, again, here's Glenda. She said, is it unusual for people to get heartburn on the reset? Well, it's extremely unusual, Glenda. Again, your body's adapting, Glenda, okay? And I'm not minimizing. But generally, thousands of testimonies that had heartburn and no longer have it. Because 99% of people that get heartburn, you know what that is? It's the body screaming, going, hello, your insulin is too high. You have insulin resistance. And how the body screams out, acid reflux is a symptom. It's not, oh, I got acid reflux. Yeah, but why do you have acid reflux? You are a carboholic. That's why you get acid reflux in 99% of the cases. Now, some people don't have enough acidity in their stomach and their proton pumps within the stomach try and create more. But usually that's because of insulin. It's a sign that your insulin's too high. You have insulin resistance. So Glenda, good question. So temporarily you might have to, let your body adjust, Glenda, and maybe take a little bit of apple cider vinegar and whatever to get that acid reflux down. A little bit of balsamic vinegar. I like that. Okay. Now Tracy's asking a very good question. I gotta bring this up. Dr. Martin, can too much vitamin D cause kidney stones? I guess. I guess. Look, first of all, vitamin D is not a vitamin. It's a hormone. The more we study vitamin D, the more we realize that nothing works properly from your brain to your toes without vitamin D. I've been saying it for so long, but you know what? They're finally catching up to what I've been saying. You cannot live properly without vitamin D. Can you take too much? Doctors. Oh, listen. 50 years ago, 200 international units of vitamin D is what they recommended. Then they went to 400. Now it's at about 1,000 to 2,000. They went way up, but it's because their calculations were always wrong. They were never right. They were wrong. And yeah, I guess, one out of a gazillion people, I remember there was a big story in Windsor, and the media love it because the media, they love it. They're bought and paid for by the pharmaceutical industry. And here's a vitamin. Here's a vitamin that they should be handing out because of COVID. Handing out. It should be mandatory. They're going to make vaccines. Good for them. Am I against the vaccine? No. But one of the vaccines that you need for COVID, and proven 100%, is vitamin D. Vitamin D. Tony Fauci takes vitamin D. He's not stupid. He sees the research. But you know what? Oh, don't take too much vitamin D. You're going to get kidney stones. Nah. Well, first of all, I like vitamin D if you're going to take it as a supplement with vitamin K2. Because what does K2 do? Because vitamin D is good for your bones. Everybody knows that. The doctors even learn that in medical school. But it's much more than bones. But let's just say it's only for bones. Well, then they go, yeah, but you can take too much. Because you're going to put calcium into your bloodstream and, that can form kidney stones. Nah. Look, here's what kidney stones are formed from, okay? Tracy. Kidney stones are formed from two big things. One, a lack of vitamin W, which is water. Two, a lack of vitamin W, water. And two, a lack or too much insulin. There's nothing that damages your kidneys more than sugar. Because your kidneys function, they filter. And if you don't drink enough water, you're not going to filter and you're going to form stones. But one of the things that make your kidneys work properly is its circulation, the little microcirculation. Think of kidneys, think of your eyes. The first thing that sugar destroys is mini blood vessels. Insulin's job is to take that sugar out of your blood vessels. That's why diabetics have so much trouble with what? Kidneys. Why do you think today it's an epidemic? The kidney, the dialysis. Why is there just so much problems with it? Because of our diet. It's sugar. It's the new smoking. It's crappy carbohydrates. Yeah. So you know what? Vitamin D, like it's just amazing. Like that even people would be, look, here's the studies that have been done on vitamin D and toxicity. Okay? You have to take 50,000 IUs a day, every day, for 6 months without vitamin K2. You have to take vitamin D every day. This is the studies have been done for 6 months, every day, 7 days a week, 50,000 IUs a day before you become toxic. And that's without vitamin K2. Come on. Oh, my blood pressure goes up when I think of the nonsense that's out there. Oh, don't take too much vitamin D. They'll give you pills till they come out both your ears, and pharmaceuticals, oh yeah, but they're approved by the FDA and Health Canada. Who cares? And I'm not telling you not to take medication. I'll tell you one thing that has killed more people than COVID this year. You know what it is? It's called iatrogenic disease. You know what that is? What's iatrogenic? You know what that means? It means people that are dying from the side effects of their medications. Do I take a swipe and say never take a med? No. But that's the truth. Oh. But vitamin D. And you know what? Every day I will have to answer the question. I get it. Because it's a fat-soluble vitamin, but it isn't. It's a hormone. I'm cooling down. Okay. Conditions. Marnie's asking about dry lips and chronic dry lips. And good question. Well, look, whenever you get dry lips, skin, hair, always a couple of things, Marnie, that I like to talk about. One, what moisturizes things? It's part of your metabolism. One, vitamin W, water. Now, I'm not saying specifically, Marnie, for you that you probably do drink water. But a lot of people don't. I just talked about what it does for kidneys, what water does for your heart. I try and get men, and I want to punch them because they're so stubborn. Over the years, one of the tests that I used to do in my office was the viscosity of blood. And men, they were the worst. They'd come in and their blood was so stinking thick. That's good if you get hit by a bus, but it's not good for your heart to have very thick blood. It makes your heart work a lot harder. Remember, you got 60,000 miles of blood vessels. 60,000 miles of blood vessels, and the life of the flesh is in your blood, the Bible says, and that's true. You can't live without your blood. But you need water to move because your blood vessels are like a river. You want it flowing. You know why a lot of people get high blood pressure? Because they're dehydrated. So Marnie, to answer your question, that one, and you probably have already dismissed that. The other one is thyroid. Because the thyroid has a lot to do with dryness. Okay? So a sluggish thyroid can do it. Third, estrogen. You got an imbalance between estrogen and progesterone. Hormones. Estrogen's too high, your thyroid slows down. You don't convert T4 to T3. You might have a deficiency of selenium. I look for deficiencies. Selenium. A deficiency of iodine. Iodine's not in the soil anymore. That's why we love our thyroid formula. And here's another deficiency. Not enough DHA. DHA is not found in the plants. It's found in the animal kingdom. And people don't eat enough fat. Because they think fat makes them fat. No, it doesn't. Okay? So there you go. Good question. Vitamin D, you could be deficient in D too. I always look for that. Even B12. B12 is an important vitamin. So I look for all those things, Marnie. Very, very good question. Leaky gut. You could have fungus, a candida. You don't even see it. It's insidious. All those things can cause dryness, okay? So, leaky gut, leaky skin. Okay, good question. Anita, poor circulation in the thyroid. You know what, Anita, yeah, I guess so. I mean, if you have, is there a real, it's not the primary connection. Like I was saying about the thyroid's a puppet, by the way. Okay? The thyroid is just a little organ that is very much connected to your hypothalamus in your brain, and your brain signals to your pituitary to release TSH. But the thyroid, you see, it doesn't work properly without the conversion, because TSH is telling your body to create T1, T2, T3, T4, T5, and calcitonin. But you better have good conversion. So if you got too much estrogen, not enough progesterone, you got leaky gut, you got fatty liver, all these things can affect the thyroid. The thyroid just a puppet. And that's why the reset is so good for the thyroid. Okay. Oh, I didn't write your name down. Somebody was asking about ocular migraines. Well, let me just talk about migraine. Ocular migraines are not necessarily different from any other type of migraine. But what causes migraines? Here is my take on migraines. Number one, elevated insulin. High circulating insulin. Migraines. Ladies, why do women get more migraines than men? Not that men can't get migraines, of course they can. What is the number one reason in women they get migraines? Too much estrogen. Migraines are often a sign of PCOS, polycystic ovarian disorder, which is caused by too much insulin and too much estrogen. Diet and cut that estrogen down, dim it out. That's why our hormonal formula, tremendous. Okay? And again, it's always a balance between estrogen and progesterone, ladies. You need both. And they need to be balanced. You say, oh, doc, I'm going into menopause. Why do I don't need, my estrogen's going down. It all depends on where your progesterone is. You've got to be balanced. We live in an estrogen-dominated world today, okay? The other things, food intolerances, you got to look for migraines. It's leaky gut, my dear. Leaky gut. Fix. Because a lot of times there's, people, they get intolerances, and now it's a little bit of an autoimmune, and that's where they can get migraines coming. Fix the gut. You got to fix the gut, and don't feed the bears. Don't give yeast. because you can get an overgrowth of yeast, and that's one of the things that I look for in migraines. Low levels of B12, low levels of omega-3 DHA, dehydration, lucrezia, the vagus nerve and inflammation, stimulating it can help with RA. She's just asking, she's heard about that. I don't know. Look, rheumatoid arthritis is autoimmune. You start in the gut. So there's a big connection between the vagus nerve and the brain. That's your connection of your brain to your stomach. But one of the things I found in rheumatoid arthritis is that first 100% leaky gut and a major, major fungal infection. And oftentimes with rheumatoid arthritis, when they were kids, they had too much antibiotics for ear infections or throat infections, and they lost their tonsils or whatever. A lot of that things can come back and bite you years and years and years later because it starts a process in the gut called leaky gut. You don't have enough friendly bacteria. Hippocrates was right, and he said, all disease starts in the gut. What a genius. 2,000 years ago, he said that. Okay. Oh, here's a good question too, because I get this at least once a week. I'm getting asked this question. What about too much iron in the blood? Now look, some of that can be genetic, okay? It's called hemochromatosis. Oh, I hate big words. Leave it to medicine to say hemochromatosis. Why don't they just say too much iron? But why do I see it so much today? Numero uno, reason number one, it's the liver. Fatty liver. And fatty liver is the first stage of diabetes. Again, it's insulin. That's why we see so much. Because we're carboholics. Oh, Dr. Martin, I must be eating too much steak. No, you're not eating enough. You're anemic. One of the biggest things in iron, hemochromatosis, too much iron, is anemia. What? They give me iron for anemia. Yeah, but when you're holding on to it, your body is smart. You don't eat enough meat. So what happens, especially red meat? Today, the world, red meat, it's so bad for you. And then you have all these people that with hemochromatosis. And here's just look, there's exceptions to all of it, so please don't come after me for this. But let me just say two things. One for women and one for men. This has been my experience. When women get hemochromatosis, generally, they're borderline anemic and nobody's ever told them. The body's smart. It's holding on to iron. And you don't cut out steak. You eat more of it. Two, in men, hemochromatosis, they have 100%, in my opinion, fatty liver. The liver is not working properly. That's why they get hemochromatosis in men. And they are borderline diabetics. They're already a diabetic, but for the sake of medicine and the way they diagnose, your sugar has to be at a certain level before they call it diabetes. No, well, what happens before sugar is insulin. Your insulin goes up. Men, look at your belly. You got a sugar belly. You're a diabetic. Already, without the diagnosis. I just gave you one. I'm very hard on men because they're so stubborn. I am one. Okay, good question. Terry, if you lost your gallbladder, Does the pancreas have a bigger job to do? In a little way it does, but it's not mainly the pancreas, because what is your gallbladder? Let me just refresh your brain here. Your gallbladder is a little pouch. It's a little reservoir. For what? Bile. It's proof that you're a carnivore. You have a gallbladder. Your dog has a gallbladder. Your cat has a gallbladder. Did you know that? Your cow, you got a pet cow? You got a pet rabbit? Do you? They don't have gallbladders. Why? Because they're not meant to eat meat. They're not carnivores, they're herbivores. You have a gallbladder because God wants you to eat meat. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given you a gallbladder. If you're a vegetarian and you're a vegan, well, you don't need a gallbladder. And guess what happens? Why do women get so much trouble with their gallbladders more than men? Because they buy the lie of not eating enough meat and fat. You see, bile is meant to emulsify your fat. You absolutely need bile. But if you don't have your gallbladder, ladies, your liver will take over, because that's where your liver makes bile. Bile comes from your liver. You need cholesterol for bile. And God doesn't trust you enough. 85% of your cholesterol is made in the liver. 15% comes from your diet. And today we see a scourge. It's a modern day scourge of gallbladder problems. And what happens? Not eating enough meat. The proof's in the pudding, guys. If you don't think, because I get a lot of pushback, on this eggs, meat, and cheese thing. I said, why do you think God gave you a gallbladder? If you lost it, your liver's still going to make bile. You might not be able to eat quite as much fat. But start slowly in terms of portions of fat. If you don't have a gallbladder. But that doesn't mean you can, your body still makes it. You got plan B. Because see, bile never came from the gallbladder. The gallbladder was just a little pouch in order to hold the bile. Got it? Okay. Really good question. Jackie is asking here, and I'm, you know what? We got delayed today. So Jackie's asking about hand sanitizers for people that have no choice. They work in a hospital or whatever, and they make them, or they work in the grocery store or whatever, and they make them use those things all day long. I feel sorry for them. We are going to see my finger? The coming tsunami. The coming tsunami. We already are terrible. 1 out of 6 or 7 women are going to get breast cancer. Just wait. How much worse it's going to be. Over the stupidity of always using... Look, use soap and water to wash your hands. And don't overdo it. You're meant to live in a world full of viruses and bacteria. Please. You guys understand that. Don't overclean. Send your kids out to get dirty and get dirt under their fingernails. Let them go play in the mud. It's good for their immune system. We've gone crazy over this virus. Crazy. Like stay indoors, don't flatten the curve, I know, but it's too much, guys. We're meant, we're over cleaning. We're going to see so much breast cancer and prostate cancer in men because when you use these hand sanitizers, your body thinks it's estrogen. Now, what can you do? Well, I would put them on everyone that works in hospitals or any environment where you have to use these hand sanitizers and sprays, spray to clean everything. Oh, these disinfectants. Well, you better be dimming that out. And that's why I love the hormonal formula and probiotics. And that's what I would tell these people. And I've told thousands of people over that last little while. Please take hormonal formula. Knock that estrogen down. Estrogen makes breast cancer and ovarian cancer and prostate cancer in men. These things are xenoestrogens, these cleaners. That's why I like oil of oregano and soap and water. Ooh. Okay, Melody. LDL, why don't I talk about it? Okay, that's such a good question. I'm going to end with this. Okay, why don't I talk about LDL? Well, look at, because cholesterol, LDL, okay? Let me tell you why we even talk about LDL first. Because statin drugs lower LDL. Do they work? Absolutely. Statin drugs work 100%. They'll lower LDL. But what has that got to do with heart disease? So your body makes LDL. It's a carrier. So is HDL. They're carriers. But HDL is more important because HDL's job is to go after and hitch their wagon to triglycerides. LDL doesn't do that. LDL is it's a low density lipoprotein. It's not dangerous. But they found a drug to lower LDL. So they say, well, look at your LDL. It's too high. We got to lower it. Why? That doesn't fix heart disease. Heart disease is not caused by high levels of cholesterol. Well, as a matter of fact, you need high cholesterol. And I don't, you know what, listen, please. I don't mind you asking that question. I really don't get tired of answering the question because it's so ingrained in our psyche. It's so ingrained in, you know, if I went to all my neighbors and I did a survey, okay? If I went to all my neighbors and did like 100 homes, 99, okay, because you're not my neighbor, right? Because if you, my audience, were my neighbors, you'd know the answer to this. But you have to understand that 99% of your neighbors and my neighbors, and if you have any doctors on the street, they'll be worse. Why? Because cholesterol is the boogeyman. LDL is the boogeyman. And it must be taken care of. And there's a whole class of medications called statin drugs. The #1 selling drug of all time. The Wayne Gretzky, the Arnold Schwarzenegger of medications, the #1 of all time seller is a drug called Lipitor. It works. It'll lower your LDL. So what? Listen, if they could have fixed heart disease, they would have fixed it already. It's still the #1 killer. More than COVID. More than the virus. is heart disease. What, 2,300 people just yesterday. Insurance company, you know what insurance companies are good at? Risk. They're going to tell you almost to the person how many people will die every day. And by the way, in 2020, there has not been more deaths than in 2019. There hasn't been. Now, I don't want to be controversial, so I'm always controversial, so I shouldn't say that. Look, I don't want to talk about the virus. I want to talk about heart disease. But yesterday, in the United States alone, about 2,400 people died yesterday. Because the insurance companies tell us that. It hasn't gone down an iota, heart disease. Because they're looking for love in all the wrong places. It ain't cholesterol. It's triglycerides. And triglycerides are caused by your diet. Too much sugar, not fat. That's science, guys. I'm sorry. That's why I don't talk about LDL too much. I talk about cholesterol in general. But, because it's nonsense. Okay, love you guys. Thank you very much. Sorry about the first video. I don't know what happened. I'm going to try and find out because that's 2 days in a row, or Wednesday. Okay, love you guys. Talk to you soon.